hiring the right people. That is the key. And it's easy to say, and there's 1,000 textbooks that are going to tell you the same thing. In my time, I grew a team of 17 senior managers within our organization, all who had sweet equity that were part of the investment journey that we went on. In 9 years, I didn't lose a single senior manager. Everyone stayed from the time they joined until the exit point in 2023. Now, that was because I personally hired them. I forget the CV. I go and have a look at, why do you want to come and work for our organization? What's in it for you? What are you giving up to be part of my business, etc.? And working with those people to go on that journey. And I think recruitment, if you get it right, fantastic. If you get it wrong, a total disaster, and can really set you back quite significant amounts of time. So I really, really encourage people to focus on those early recruitments, so the people you're going to bring in that are going to go on that journey with you for a long time. And incentives like sweet equity is a great way to do that, to encourage people to stay with you on that journey as well.
Fastlane Founders and Legacy with Jason Barnard. Each week, Jason sits down with successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, and executives and get them to share how they mastered the delicate balance between rapid growth and enduring success in the business world. How can we quickly build a profitable business that stands the test of time and becomes our legacy? A legacy we're proud of. Fastlane Founders and Legacy with Jason Barnard.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Fastlane Founders with me, Jason Barnard, and a quick hello, and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Andrew Hulbert.
Thank you very much. Do I need to sing back, or is it okay to do it this way?
You can if you want to, or you can just say thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're going to be talking about Exit, Reset, Legacy, and this is absolutely perfect. I was at an entrepreneurs organization event, Deal Exchange in Los Angeles a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of talk about building up, fattening up the turkey to get the exit, and how much money you're going to have for the rest of your life, how wonderful it is. And generally speaking, that's what a lot of people are looking for. And then on the last morning, a guy called Dave Hirsch gave a talk saying only 15% of people who exit a company successfully with enough money to live the rest of their lives in comfort are actually happy. And so I'm talking to somebody who's one of the 15%.
That's very, very interesting. I guess I worked with a business psychologist once, and they said entrepreneurs are swimming towards an island, and which is the financial exit. And when they get to that island, they need to work out what they're going to do at that point. Otherwise, depression is a real challenge. It's similar to sports stars as they're exiting after they've got their gold medal, and what does it mean next? So, yeah, I can relate to that, certainly.
Yeah, we'll discuss all of this in the context of you're happy, and I can see from my perspective that I may well have a problem if I exit the company, and that brings up a whole kettle of fish that I don't necessarily want to talk about, but I will. So before we get going, really quickly, I always show everybody their brand search. This is the result that comes up for you when we search your name on Google, and it's dominated by photos. They all seem to be you. So is your name quite unique?
Well, the Hulbert surname, I think, is relatively unique, yes. So it works quite well as a search.
Yeah, and gives you a lovely advantage. But in fact, if you can see the bottom there, see results about, that's actually a knowledge panel. It's a tiny knowledge panel with your name and your LinkedIn profile, and that's it. And if people are watching this and they want to Google my name and see the difference, I've got an amazing result where I look like some kind of superstar. You were talking about sports stars. You look like the guy who's just started in his sports career, and I look like the person who just broke the world record for running around in Turkey.
Excellent.
So all of that to say, the search engine page for your personal name, I feel, is very important as an entrepreneur, for me at least, especially in B2B, less in B2C. And we're moving over as well now to the AI resume, where ChatGPT, Google are summarizing your life. And I love the idea that we can take control and that we're not at the mercy of these machines. But onto Exit, Reset, Legacy, because with CaliCube, we've set the target of getting $10 million in revenue by 2030. So annual revenue, $10 million. And I could potentially then say, well, there's an exit for me. But I don't want to, because I'm afraid of that island. Yeah. So can we talk through that? Why are you one of the 15%, a young person who's exited the company with enough money for the rest of their lives, and you're happy because you've found your family again, is what I've understood.
Yeah, so look, I think just as a bit of context, so I'm a proper working class family, council estate roots, originally in the UK. So I came from a family that was working, my dad was working 60 to 70 hours a week in a factory every week. 7 till 7, he was out of the house, came home, had dinner, and then he'd be doing a number of jobs. My mum was working 2 or 3 jobs to make everything else work outside of that as well as raising 3 kids at the same time, which is obviously very challenging. So for me, I went into knowing I wanted to start my own business one day because although I respect my parents enormously, that isn't the life I wanted for myself in terms of working lots of hours for low pay. I was always willing to work very, very hard, but the reason I wanted to start a business from about the age of 15 was because I thought I could go on a journey that would get me to that exit point quicker than going on a graduate scheme in Marks and Spencer's or whatever and trying to work my way up through the corporate world. That was never going to work for me. As many entrepreneurs, we're upstarts that we don't listen to anybody anyway. So big corporates wasn't necessarily going to work for me in terms of the way I did it. So I knew as I went through this 10-year entrepreneurial journey, which literally started in my bedroom with no funding, no backers, literally nothing, me and a laptop. And we grew that business to £50 million and 500 staff within a 9-year period. And I was able to then exit in 2023 at the age of 37 with my beach money, as they call it, in terms of being able to step away. Now, at that point, all I ever really wanted to do was try and get my life back that I had before I started.
Sorry, can we come back a step? You've gone right to the end of the story before we've actually started.
Yeah, okay.
So 50 million in 9 years. My target of 10 million in 5 years isn't unreasonable. Did you hit 10 million in 5 years?
Yes, we hit 10 million in year 4. So year 3.5,
wow.
We hit 10 million. Yeah, from
what
standing
kind of company
start.
was it?
So property services. So we were predominantly in London looking after large corporate office space. So everything from compliance, maintenance, leases, rates, rental, decarbonisation, everything that it takes to create and run a high profile office. And we were working with big tech companies. So early clients were the likes of Twitter, Deliveroo, ASOS, so big brands within the UK. So that's how we grew quickly through that time.
And getting that kind of client, how did you do it? Was it a great salesperson or are you just very charming?
I am one of the best salespeople within that particular sector. I don't know whether I could sell everything to everybody else, but the challenge that our sector had is it's an old, outdated sector in terms of the people that are within it. So for example, of the membership base that we have, 85% are men and over 50% of those are over 45. So it tends to be an older male demographic. I came in as this 27-year-old who had these ideas about how we were going to do everything differently and how we were going to champion things like ESG and sustainability and social mobility and be right at the forefront of that. And what I found is the big names that people always wanted within their portfolio and the tech startups in particular, they weren't necessarily looking for the most technically gifted, like who's going to maintain my air conditioning the best. They wanted to work with suppliers that were amazing suppliers, going on a journey themselves and supporting. And so I was incredibly good within that situation. And I could tell a great story as this entrepreneur that was going on a journey. And I also always used to bring them donuts with their logo on. If you ever want to get someone's attention, donuts with their logo is a great place to start, to be a little bit different to everyone else.
Right. Okay. So it's differentiate yourself and tell a story. Is that going to work everywhere? Would that work for Calicube, for example?
Well, I think potentially, because look, there's this whole adage that people want to buy from people. And in our sector, for example, there are 125,000 suppliers that do what we do. So actually, that is a busy market. 93% are under 1 million, and then the other 7% are above 1 million turnover. That tells you probably it's a highly fragmented market in what we do. And one of the learnings that I had, we didn't do anything different to a base that was already working within the sector. I just think we told a better story, we marketed ourselves better, and actually we focused on what others don't do very well, and we did that very well. That was really our focus. So with your organization, for example, I'm sure there are thousands of competitors, maybe not as many as 125,000, but it's what are they not doing very well that customers are leaving them for to go and work with somebody else? And that's really where we focused.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. And you mentioned under 1 million. That seems to be a number that comes up all the time. That's the ceiling. And a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck at that ceiling. And what's your explanation of that, and why did you, and how did you get through that?
I think, when entrepreneurs start up, there's a real energy about it that you think you're going to change the world and you're going to go on this incredible journey. And many people, I think, they manage to convince 1 or 2 clients or 3 or 4 clients or whatever to get going with them. It's how you then scale out of that situation that's incredibly difficult. I think most people have it within them to grow a business from nothing to 1 million. I think that's a relatively straightforward thing to do. The challenge I always had, and I wasn't particularly good at this advice, is you need to start bringing in resource very early to focus on growth, because growth and organic sales will cure all the problems that you ever have. It's all about finding more sales and growing more organically. So for me, it's about trying to focus on growth much earlier. Because I was an unbalanced entrepreneur, as I probably still am today, I also focused on growth very hard, but it ended up meaning I was working, 110 hours a week, probably on a normal day, didn't have any days off, no time off, no holidays, etc. When actually we should bring others in to start focusing on growth very early.
Right. And I mean, that's critical, isn't it? Is moving the tasks or the responsibilities over to other people as much as possible. What I've found is the more I can do that, the more I can see the bigger picture, and the better ideas I have, the bigger ideas I have. Yeah. But it's very difficult not to get dragged back into the weeds when things start going wrong.
That is about hiring the right people. That is the key. And it's easy to say, and there's 1,000 textbooks that are going to tell you the same thing. In my time, I grew a team of 17 senior managers within our organization, all who had sweet equity that were part of the investment journey that we went on. In 9 years, I didn't lose a single senior manager. Everyone stayed from the time they joined until the exit point in 2023. Now, that was because I personally hired them. I forget the CV. I go and have a look at, why do you want to come and work for our organization? What's in it for you? What are you giving up to be part of my business, etc.? And working with those people to go on that journey. And I think recruitment, if you get it right, fantastic. If you get it wrong, a total disaster, and can really set you back quite significant amounts of time. So I really, really encourage people to focus on those early recruitments, so the people you're going to bring in that are going to go on that journey with you for a long time. And incentives like sweet equity is a great way to do that, to encourage people to stay with you on that journey as well.
Right. Yeah. And another question is, you're the best salesman in that particular area. I'm great at product. I can build the best product. CaliCube Pro, 9 billion data points. I've built that. I love it. I'm having to learn to be a good salesman, and I struggle. Do you think it's more important for me? I mean, now that I've built the product, segueing or transferring my skill set to sales is really hard.
No, I would say entrepreneurs, we're generally good at 1 or 2 things, and we are like superhero good at that thing. And it sounds like you're superhero good at the product side, which you created. Yes, and 9 billion data points is incredible, by the way. That's very significant.
Yeah, and it's 9 billion data points covering 70 million brands and the detailed digital footprint of 1 million entrepreneurs. So it's really focused, and I've spent so long focusing in and making sure it's incredibly clean. But that's useless if I don't have any clients to use it on.
Yes. So then it's about understanding where are your fragilities as an entrepreneur, and we all have them, and getting out of our own way to make sure that someone who's better than us can do it on our behalf. So it sounds like perhaps in your scenario, finding an exceptionally good salesperson that you can perhaps give a cut of the upside to, because they're really going to be how you're going to grow that organization from that point. And then it's okay that you're not the salesperson. And let's face it, often in organizations, the technical brains are not the best salespeople, because that's not what their brain is wired to do. Their brain is wired to be technically excellent, not a salesperson.
We record the sales calls, and the person who then tries to close the sale or closes the sale often comes back and says, stop explaining things.
Well, that's okay as long as they're selling loads of stuff. It's okay to be critical of others if you're doing it yourself. But look, for me...
I agree with her. I explain too much because I'm so passionate about it. And I should actually be saying, what's your problem and what does a win look like? How can we help you get there? And where's the value in this for you? And if I can do that, I understand where they're coming from, and we can serve them. And I just keep
Yes.
going, oh, we've got 9.4 billion data points. Here's what we can do. And they don't care. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, but the salesperson that you're referring to, it's her job to make sure she uses you in the best way to get the win at the end of the day. That's what a great salesperson does. And I'd say part of my other skill set was if I was going into a sales pitch and I knew who was on the other side, which often we did, I knew the right team to take into that room to make sure that we hit the certain characteristics and the certain key points that we were trying to do, but in an authentic way. Some people try and do that and try and fake, like on your side, what you're good at and what you're trying to offer to the other side. Authenticity wins through every single time, especially when you're doing things in person, which we always did from a tender perspective. So for us, it was about being that great business that people loved us, they enjoyed what we were saying, they wanted to go on that journey, and it was all about that two-way interaction, which sometimes I think gets lost in sales because you're just trying to tell your story as opposed to sort of doing things both ways.
Brilliant. Super. Now I've goofed because we've talked too long about the before the exit. Now let's go on to exit, reset, legacy, which was the point.
Yeah.
As you're coming up to the exit, you've thought, from what I understand, several years ahead, I need to plan for the exit.
Mm-hmm.
What's that process look like?
Yes. Well, I think the key is that if someone's going to invest a significant amount of money in your organization and you want to take a step back at that stage, you need to present them with something that's going to be viable for the future. And that may be 2 or 3 years before you're ready to sell, because you need to hire a C-suite of people that are brilliant, that are running the business, that are doing it without you in it. And investors are not stupid. If you still do everything and then at exit pretend you don't, they're going to see straight through it because they're going to spend £1 million on due diligence, understanding how your business runs anyway. So for me, it's all about prepare for that exit goal in mind. We probably started 2.5 years before in terms of just getting ourselves ready, processes, systems, finances, people, C-suite. A new CEO. I'd been CEO for 9 years, so stepping back and putting someone else in to make sure we were ready to go was a really important thing. So you put
another CEO in place before you sold?
Yes,
that must have been very attractive, because the fear, I would imagine, is that if you're the CEO and the founder and you're driving sales, without you, the whole thing collapses.
Absolutely. And so we'd had a CEO in place for nearly 12 months prior to going to the actual exit point. And that was really important. But also, as the founder, I still offered to support from a non-exec perspective so that we didn't lose that part of the branding and the founder story and everything that goes with it. But yeah, it was all about, if people are going to give tens of millions to an organization to purchase it, it has to be a great platform that they're building from a people perspective and a process and system perspective. And for anyone who has not sold a business before, the amount of due diligence that gets completed on these deals is really, really significant. I'm talking weeks of dealing with consultants to go through every aspect of your business. The more prepared you can be for that, the smoother your sale will be, and the less chance they've got to take chunks out of the sale price because you haven't got X, Y, and Z. And it really is about being prepared.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned processes and people. I'm trying to think of the third P, which is going to be that the CEO or the founder isn't the be-all and end-all. It isn't going to collapse if they leave. So for me, those are the 3 Ps, but I can't think what word would fit for the third P.
No, but it's true, because I think with founders in particular, because it's been their baby for such a long time, they run things in a way that works for them. And that's not always a good thing for the organization because it needs to be processed, delivered in the right way. So yeah, that ability to take that step back and allow the business. But for us, we were able to demonstrate that for a 12-month period, the business was running very successfully and it was all working. But also, I mean, we had 500 odd staff at that stage when we exited. I know one person is important, but actually you've built a team. It's not just a one person entity. And if they're willing to stay and be proactive and still act as a sales function and the founder type role, there's some real strength in keeping that as part of like a non-exec situation, as well as supporting that senior team that's in place.
Yeah. Oh, I like this. This is great. But that whole thing of saying, right, okay, I've taken a step back, put a CEO in place, that's got to help with the reset, because you were saying earlier on, and I think it's true for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's my baby. And what do I do when I stop? And that reset is where Dave Hirsch was saying, that's where it goes wrong, is people prepare for an exit, but they don't think about the reset that's going to get them into the new life on that desert island you were talking about.
Yes.
And maybe, I mean, you said island, but I've just thought desert island, because you get there and you go, right, now I'm on my own, and suddenly I feel terribly lonely, and I'm not sure what to do here because there's one palm tree and a beach.
Yes. Well, I mean, Jason, so much to unpick from what you just said. I tell you what, my reset didn't happen when I handed over the CEO. If anything, that made me more stressed because someone else was going to run the business for me now. My reset came, and it was a very real example. So we'd sold the business, and I'd always had this dream of just getting on a train and going nowhere. That was sort of one of my dreams, my fantasies as I was doing it. An old Oasis song called Going Nowhere on a Train. And I went and hopped on the Caledonian Express.
You could sing it at this moment.
I really am not. That's not what I'm here for. You don't want that. It will get viewers.
So you hopped on a train?
Hopped on a train, went on the Caledonian Express from King's Cross all the way to the north of Scotland, and then got off in Fort William, and then hired a car and drove to the very north tip of Scotland on my own. And it was pouring with rain the whole time that I was there. And I just sort of felt like I had this escape moment, and this moment I've been building up to for a while. I managed to deliver it. But then as you start to go back, I mean, that was approaching 2 years ago now, compared to where I am today. So the decompression has been positive from my perspective, because having worked with a business psychologist, like I mentioned, I knew what was coming. But for me, I'd neglected my friends, neglected my family, neglected my wife, through that last almost 9-10 years of time that I'd spent doing the business. So I had something to go back to. And I was very lucky that I still had all my family unit, and my friends and my kids were still young. So I was able to go back and do that and genuinely find joy again in doing that mundane stuff, taking the kids to school, watching them go swimming, doing their homework. Whereas before I just wasn't present in that. And I'm very open about that situation. So my kids are 4 and 6 now. So the last couple of years has been magic in terms of just being part of it. And the other thing I did when I exited is I bought a farm. So we live on a farm now. So a normal day for us is to get on the quad bike, go and pick some fruit, make some jam, maybe make some sourdough, and just really enjoy all that time together, which I could not do when I was at my height because I was just switched on 1,000%.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of that's really interesting because you've got family. Now, I'm in a position, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they exit, they've worked so hard for so long. Not only is the company my baby, but when I walk away, I don't have a family. I need something else. And finding that is going to be a struggle.
Yes. I would go back to your passions. And it could be anything, right? It could be walking dogs. It could be pottery. It could be skydiving. It could be any of those things that you neglected to do. But entrepreneurs will know what...
Collecting data and mastering the algorithms, that's my passion.
And that is very special. And maybe you don't need to sell the business that soon, because if that's what you love, and then why would it be any different? But
that was the conclusion after the Entrepreneurial Organization deal exchange with Dave Hirsch, is saying, well, if it's only 15%, I don't think I'm in that 15%, so I better not sell.
Yeah. But Jason, also, there are ways to release money from a business without losing control entirely. If you're growing and you can have private equity investment for 20, 30, 40%, whatever, you can take some money off the table. You can achieve your financial things that you want to on an immediate basis. For me, when we did the first private equity deal, the money I took off the table, I bought my mum and dad's house, I bought my 2 sisters' houses, I paid off my mortgage, because I knew then that if everything went pop afterwards, I'd achieved the things I wanted to achieve to give back to my family from the very beginning. And that calmed me down quite a lot at that stage, because I'd achieved some of that early goal that I'd set for myself. And then when we got the second exit, I was able to go and do the more frivolous things like buy a farm and buy a sports car and do all that sort of stuff that went with it. But that wasn't my initial goal. And that's really where my focus was. But yeah, you can release money through businesses that are successful. And that worked well for us at the early stage as well.
Super duper. Oh, that's good news. So the reset is difficult. And I really want to bring to the fore the fact, and that 15% may or may not be true, but it's relatively small and surprisingly so. You can't play golf all day, every day. I think kind of it's the silly example, but definitely think if golf is your entire future, you're in trouble. You need a lot more than that. And emotional involvement, which is what I hear from you with your family. For me, it would be music, and there's a lot of emotion going on there. So I think thinking about your emotions and where your emotions are going, and as an entrepreneur, you tend not to focus on that too much. It's very pragmatic all the time. And all of a sudden you get out the other side, and it's a lot of emotion needs to be reintegrated. I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not
No.
a business psychologist, but definitely makes sense.
But Jason, the other thing that I found being in my late 30s when I finished up was that all my mates are at work, right? They've got families, they've got jobs, and there aren't many 40-year-olds running around, bouncing around every day saying, hey, do you want to go and play tennis or what do you want to do? In the end, I got into things like scuba diving. I got into skydiving. I'm one of the biggest blood donors in the world now. So I donate every 2 weeks, saved over 1,000 lives through blood donations now, planted a forest, just bought a nature reserve, all these things that you can do to sort of enrich your now life and the future life. That's where I started to focus my time. But it doesn't mean it's easy. I can understand how people get to an exit point and then just fall a little bit flat. But I think we're entrepreneurs. We're very good at sorting stuff out. It's about proactively going, trying to create what your new reality looks like. And that can be special. I think a lot of people think when you do an exit, you're going to buy a catamaran and sail around the Bahamas for the rest of your life. It's not that. If you've got kids in particular, they need to go to school or be supported through university or whatever. But if you have family ties, you can't just up and go because that's not necessarily going to give you the well-being that you want. That said, if that's what your choice is and you want to do it, that everyone's different in how they want it. But for me, because of my community early life, it was important to me to be part of my family and be an active part of that as well.
Yeah, I like the word well-being. I think that's much better stated than I did. Now, we can finish off with legacy. What do you mean by that?
Legacy for me is I want people to Google me in the future. Maybe I need to improve my Google from what you've just showed me at the start. But I sort of have this wonderful idea that the forest that we've planted and the nature reserve that we've just bought, they're next to each other. I like this idea that in 150 years, someone comes to see this forest that will be hopefully well established by that stage and goes, my great-great-great-grandfather, who was a bit bonkers back in the 20s, decided that this is what he was going to do with his life. Yeah. And this is the positive legacy we're leaving behind. But also kids. I want my children to grow up knowing the value of money, working hard. I don't want them to think they've got this big windfall of cash that's going to come one day. And for me, my legacy is partly through how I raise my children and the impact that they can have on society in a positive way. And I know how hard I was working as a child. They won't have to do exactly the same, but I will expect them to do things for money. And they don't have loads of toys and they don't have this ridiculously flamboyant life because we want them to work hard for what they're going to get. And that's what legacy looks like to me now, as well as telling the story of working class to early exit. I think it's possible for anybody to do that. And hence why I'm out trying to tell the story and raise the opportunity for that.
Well, I mean, I suppose as well, yeah, encourage people who are from a working class background to aim for the stars, if we can say that, or have the ambition and the belief in themselves, because it's easy to get stuck, as you said, in this idea of I need to get a job and then work my way up the corporate ladder. And that isn't necessarily the case if you've got the entrepreneurial spirit. Can you define the entrepreneurial spirit to finish the episode?
Yeah, for me, entrepreneurial spirit is understanding that you may need to make sacrifices of things that you want to do for a higher outcome that you're aiming for in the future. And being content with yourself that you may miss out on going out on a Friday night with your mates because you're working on something that's going to give you the life that you want. So just understanding sacrifice is part of the journey. That's what entrepreneurial spirit means to me.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. That's a lovely end to the show. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. You get the outro song. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much.
Your corporate and personal brands are what Google and AI say they are. We can give you back control. CaliCube.